Well, I can now say I've made it further down the racetrack than any pro competitor this weekend here. You would have seen the news by now. The race has been canceled. We have our 4 champions crowned, and rather than a loud bang, it kind of ends with a wet, somber fart. It's not ideal, of course. I'm standing on a racetrack right now, and I can tell you from a fact, from talking to some of the drivers, from hearing what the series had to say, from overhearing conversations made after the race, this wasn't really an ideal condition that anybody would have liked. And I'm going to say this right now because I know a lot of fans are upset, they're pissed, they're angry. I can tell you for a fact this is not from lack of trying. This is just really tough circumstances that left us in a position where there wasn't really much choice. I can tell you for certainty, this wasn't just the series saying, okay, we're calling it quits. This was a driver's decision as well. There's a couple reasons as to why. So I'm standing out here right now. I am past the starting line. I'm past the tree. This should be like one of the stickier parts of the racetrack off the starting line. It's gone. They scraped it. They tried multiple times today to scrape this racetrack to get anything going. For those of you who aren't aware of how this racetrack really works, this isn't like most drag strips NHRA has where they have divisional races and weekly meets and stuff like that. This really only gets used twice a year, and then sometimes on special occasions when NHRA decides to have some divisional races when they can, because they have to work with the city to get the permits to come out here and do this. This track doesn't get a lot of rubber put down. The last time a car really has been on the racetrack was the Winter Nationals back at the beginning of the season. So the situation that we found ourselves in is because of the fact that you had not only 2 days of heavy downpour where it never really stopped, you had flash flooding all across the Southern California area, but today it just kept on raining. It would stop for a couple times and it looked like there was an opportunity where, okay, we can get these race cars on the racetrack. But then when the Safety Safari started scraping the rubber off the racetrack, every single time they did, more water would seep up out of the racetrack. For those of you who remember NASCAR fans at Fontana, similar situation. Not so much weepers, but just every single time they would try to scrape rubber off the racetrack to get something put down, more water would just come up. It just soaked into the racetrack and left us in a position where if we even did get the racetrack in a somewhat raceable condition, it would have been, even with the weather, how cold it is, the wind chill that we have right now, it got colder as the day went on. If you send a race car down the racetrack as it stands right now, not only would have been a challenge for the tuners to get something to work on this racetrack, but it would have put them in a much dangerous position, similar to what we saw back at Gainesville, when you had multiple cars spinning the tires, you had near misses, and you had Trip Tatum's disastrous crash that put us under delay for 2 hours and destroyed a race car for the most part. So I don't blame anybody for deciding not to send race cars down the track, because it's too much of a liability. And with the conditions that we had, not just here on the racetrack itself, but even up on the top end of the racetrack, as you can see, there was a swamp up at the sand trap, and not only that, there was a lake that kind of formed on the shutdown area. Maddie Gordon apparently posted a video yesterday where her and her sister were dragged around in a boat by a motorcycle. That's how much water was standing there. They were able to fit a boat on there. When we were driving into the racetrack today, on this side of the racetrack, there was a massive amount of standing water. They had 3 water pumps with massive hoses feeding outside the racetrack, just gushing water, and it was still a standing, like ankle deep water lake. And even as I stand right now on the racetrack, like, it's just kind of a layer of water just standing along the racetrack. So I mean, this is just unraceable conditions. Even as I stand behind me, I can see kind of the standing water on the starting lines. So there was just no way, absolutely no way, that they could really send race cars down here and be confident that nothing disastrous was going to happen. You know, the series was founded specifically at this racetrack as a safe place for drag racers to go, and sadly, this wasn't a safe place today. Now, there were fans who were clamoring, we need to move the finals. I somewhat agree based on the fact of, you know, the challenges that this track has with the noise ordinances, with the permits, with everything that surrounds it, but the history of this place means so much to the sport that's kind of hard to say no. And one of the big places I hear is Vegas. Well, the same storms that hit here hit Vegas as well. There's Supernats went on their massive go-kart race. They had disastrous conditions as well, where they had go-karts racing in the rain and nobody could see. They had to call the race off because multiple people felt like it was just going to be too dangerous to send anybody safely around the racetrack. So it's just one of those situations. It's just kind of like those active gods. I was talking to Jack Beckman earlier, and he says, every year, or Greg Anderson actually, and he said, like, it seems every year California has one of those major storms of the year, and it's always after NHRA is here. Well, sadly, this time we drew the short end of the stick, and it was on our weekend. Now, I've heard NASCAR fans as well clamoring, I can't believe that NHRA canceled their final race. Again, like I mentioned earlier, this isn't like a normal racetrack where you can just get up, go, and do whatever the hell you want, whenever the hell you want. It's a situation where you are in a major metropolitan area. We're an hour away from Los Angeles. Not only that, I think within a 2-mile radius, there's at least, I want to say 1,000 houses. This is a massively developed area. There's a metro train that runs just behind the racetrack. About 2 blocks that way, there's a university campus. There's a lot of people that live in this area. You got to go through so many hurdles just to get the noise ordinances to be able to run here, to run at the times when they want you to, as to not disturb the people that live around here, as well as the permits from the city to allow you to race here. Also, the fact the award ceremony is tomorrow night. That was a situation that happened last year when the plane crash happened. There was concerns if somebody had died, the race would be canceled because it would be turned into an FAA investigation on the spot, and then the race would have been canceled, and they couldn't do that because the awards banquet is the next night. Now, personally, in my opinion, why you have the awards banquet the night after the race, I don't know. Everybody lives in Indy. Just move the dang thing to Indy. Move it to PRI weekend. That'd be a really cool idea. But besides the point, it's just a ton of circumstances that just didn't work out. Everything that could have gone wrong for the NHRA this weekend did go wrong. And I'm just going to state this as hard as I can. This is not from a lack of trying. They were here at 6 in the morning, scraping, putting rubber down, spraying this track, drying the track. They did everything they could for every single minute that they could until the rain came back down. And then finally, somebody just had to say enough was enough. Yes, we could have had a championship race. Yes, you could have put some cars on the racetrack, but it would have caused more problems than it did solutions. Now, on the flip side of that, like I said, 4 champions have been crowned. Doug Coletto was crowned champion yesterday. He would have won that championship no matter what, because as soon as qualifying ended, he would have had the points he needed to lock it up. Sean Langdon wouldn't have been able to close that gap. Matt Hagan, if Austin Prock had won round 1 today, he would have locked the championship up. If he lost, Matt Hagan would have to win the race to secure that championship. Dallas Glenn was in a situation much similar to Austin Prock. If he won round 1, championship's done. If he lost, I believe Greg Anderson would have had to go to the semis. The only one that really hurts is Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera, who I've mentioned with him. I talked about this with him multiple times on this channel. You go back to those 2 bad races in Reading and Charlotte, how much of a difference have it made? 21 points is the difference by the end of it. 1 round is what separated Gage Herrera from capturing the hat trick, 3 championships in a row in his first 3 tries. Instead, it's over, and now Richard Gatson, who, in all honesty, double-sided coin on that one, because I hate it for Gage Herrera. But on the flip side, when the announcement came out that the race was canceled, I was pissed off because of the fact that I flew 2,000 miles out here just to have no cars on the racetrack and to be a wet fart of a weekend. But as soon as I realized Richard Gatson's a Pro Stock Motorcycle Championship, that kind of just threw everything out of the window, because I'm happy for that guy. We've talked to him multiple times on this channel. He's one of the nicest guys you can talk to. He is a man of the people. He is so social friendly. He loves every single person he comes across. If you don't like Richard Gatson, then you probably did something wrong to him. He's one of the nicest guys you can meet. He is uplifting in every single way. He is a much deserving champion. And to be quite honest, out of everybody I wanted to win a championship this season, he was the guy I was looking at number 1 heading into the countdown. With how good that bike was, with how consistent he was, with how he really came into his own. It's unbelievable to think that a guy who came into the season with no wins, who was just hoping to get a Wally, now leaves a world champion and will hold the number 1 crown heading into next season, or the number 1 plate, I should say. So, massive congratulations to him. I know this means a lot to him. This is a massive deal for not only him, but everything he represents. I know he's going to represent it well. Congratulations to him. Now, of course, we don't have any on-track action, but as always, we're able to talk to your 3 remaining champions today up in the media center following today's cancellation. Let's listen to them, and then we can wrap up what is the 2025 season.
Protect your vehicle with peak original equipment technology. Our formulas match the vehicle manufacturer's technology requirements so that we have the perfect match for every vehicle.
Richard, when we sat up in that media center in Gainesville at the beginning of the season, you told me how important it was for you and how you wanted to be that inspiration for kids, not from a racial background, but from an ethnic background, from those inner city kids who don't have that same upbringing as most kids, who have the challenges that they go through to life to get to where they want to be, the same way that your uncle and the same way that other races were for you. That was just talking about getting a Wally in your hands. Now you're a world champion. You got the award this past week from the Brothers and Sisters of America for what you've done this season for them. Now what does that mean to you to get to go back to these kids with not only the Wally, but the big trophy and get to say this is what you can do in your life if you put the work behind you?
You know, it's, one thing I always struggle with is I'm like, I don't want to run it dry, right? I don't want to make it to where like I'm trying to, but this is my story, right? This is literally my life, my story, and if I can't get here and tell it to the world, tell it to those kids, like it was all for nothing. So, that's another thing that I hope that they see, is, I know I've ran it into the ground, but, my situation is not exactly what you would normally model somebody who's sitting up here as a pro stock motorcycle world champion as. It's been a really, 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 I didn't always make great decisions, I didn't always, I wasn't always I didn't think at one point that I'd ever do this. I thought I had messed it up. And it didn't have anything to do with my performance on the racetrack. So to be able to stand up here or stand in front of those kids and in front of any crowd that'll listen and talk to them about that is huge for me. So when I see those kids again, and again, I always say, I'm not talking about chasing the dream, I'm talking about obtaining it now. It changes the message a little bit.
And then you talk about how you really wanted this championship to come down between you and Gage, mano a mano for the championship. You both come from that grudge racer background. When's the race at IRP next week for you two to get the symbols?
We've actually already started talking about that. We ran through a couple scenarios. IRP, we talked about going down to Grinchmas, which is a grudge event, Kings of Grudge. We'll both be at racing some of our no-bar bikes. That's the beauty of this is we are both grudge racers, and we actually are not outside of Vance and Hines Motorsports. We are not teammates. We're friends, but we are not teammates. We race against each other, and there's a lot at stake. We're going to figure something out. It's going to be, without the cameras. It's going to be without the people, but we're going to figure something out. And if we can, it'll spill over to Gainesville. I'm sure, however this goes, when we get to Gainesville, we'll still be thinking about what didn't get finished here, and we'll square it away. But I'll keep that number one plate for him I'll keep it safe for a while. He'll get a shot at me next year.
You went all season long, like the storyline that we always talked about was how last year ended that heartbreak in the finale versus Greg. This year, you two were neck and neck running away with it. To have this dominant of a season and to end with it, getting the redemption of having that first championship to your name and getting to beat Greg doing that, just how much does that mean to you to get to have this strong of a season to cap it all off?
Oh, it definitely... It is probably one of the reasons why I really feel like I earned it, because if Greg would have beat me in Vegas and just been 30 or 40 points behind me, it definitely would have felt a lot different, and I have a feeling Greg would have pushed harder to try to race this on Wednesday or something like that. So but to be able to take out Greg Anderson there in the semis at Las Vegas and extend the points lead into something where it's going to be pretty hard for him to get around me. Not something like he's got to take me out of the semis or the final round or something like that, to where, I just needed to win first round. I think he kind of understood that this was one, we definitely earned it this year. We didn't have any gimmies, we didn't have any freebies. We went out and earned every round. Even if the planets were aligned on some of them, and I may not have drove the best on some of them, but we definitely went out there and, we did our homework and we did all of our work off track so that we can, have the success on track.
We talk about the joyfulness and the relief of getting to win that first championship with how strong of a season that you've had. Does this kind of numb the pain of that breakage in the semis at Indy, or does this kind of make it sting a little bit more thinking about what could have been now?
Oh, Indy's going to be one of those that's always a tough race. Indy's just a long, grueling, hot, just extremely difficult, pressure-filled race, and that's definitely one that's right there up at the top of the list that I'd really like to accomplish. And it definitely, I'm always going to be kicking myself for the mistake I made. But you're only as good as your last race, and at this moment, the last race that we got to compete, I was holding a trophy, so I always just try to look forward to the next one and try to learn from my mistakes and try not to do that. And I feel like I have definitely done that. I've stepped up my reaction times through the countdown. Definitely got better as I went, and kind of just snuck up on it and learned from that mistake I made in Indy.
Last year when you won the championship, obviously you get out of the car at the top end, you're all by yourself, maybe one PR person with you. You have to wait for the guys to get all the way up to the top end and then celebrate. To be able to celebrate that championship at the trailer with them right behind your shoulder, how special of a moment was that for you to get to celebrate it at the jump?
Yeah, it was cool. It was interesting. You know, both of these championships have obviously come in two totally different fashions, and you know, being with the guys, that's where I want to be when I celebrate. I wish every one of them could be on the top end with me when I get out of the race car, even on a race win. You know, I love driving this race car, but one thing I miss about being a crew member is being on the starters. It's not me, it's not just my dad, it's not just my brother, it's not just Nate Hildahl, it's every one of us, from the race team to the race shop. Everybody's doing a phenomenal job, and they're putting in that 110% effort and allowing us to come out. So being able to celebrate with my guys this afternoon, or early morning, I guess, or late morning, was incredible. You know, me and my brother were the first ones to know, and I was out there signing autographs, and I turned around and just screamed, "We're two-time world champs." And everybody looked at me funny because they didn't know. And I'm like, they canceled the event. We're the world champ for the second consecutive time in a row, and it brought tears to my eyes.
And that is going to wrap the video here this weekend. Again, really, it's not from a lack of trying. I know the safety safari's pissed, the track workers are pissed, the team members are pissed because they couldn't get any race again. The only people you really feel bad for are the fans that were here all weekend. There were people walking the pits all day long, just drudging it out, hoping that they would get something. I don't know what the plan is, if there's any way for the NHRA to pay it forward to get these fans back to the racetrack, because as you would have heard many drivers talk about, as you would have heard many team members and crew guys talk about, the real losers this weekend are the fans. I, can stand to lose the money. Thank you again to our friends at Peak Performance for sending us out here. They made this pain a lot less, a lot easier. Again, just a quick shout out to them, because this is the last time this season besides PRI. I mean, I've had a great relationship with the people over at Peak. I mean, they've been fantastic to all of us. They have been great partners to work with. Every single thing I ever throw at them as an idea, they greenlight immediately, and they say, what can we do to help you? And just every step of the way, they have been phenomenal people to work with. I am honored to get to represent those guys, and I just can't thank them enough, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to be here. But if it wasn't for you, they wouldn't have even noticed us in the first place. So to all of you who watch these videos for whatever reason, thank you for that. I've met a surprising amount of fans in the pits, despite the lack of the crowd that was out here this weekend. There were the faithful that still drudged it out to hope for a race. But I met a good few people here watching this channel. The surprising one of the weekend was I met a guy who actually came all the way from England for this race. So if there's probably any fan that I feel the worst for, it's him, because he flew halfway across the world for this. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. I can't thank you guys enough for all the support that you've given me this year to allow me the opportunity to get to come out here and cover these races and get to be a part of this entire paddock and this pit and get to witness the history that happens within this sport. It's been phenomenal to get to be a witness to all of this. And it's thanks to you guys that it's even a possibility. So thank you to you all. Thank you to Peak Performance, who support us all season long. I can't wait to see what the future holds for both of us to prepare for the 2026 season and how we can one-up this. Again, that's pretty much going to wrap up the video. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, comment what your favorite moment was of the season this year down in the comment section below. Be sure to hit the like button, as well as share the video with everybody you know, or at least another video that maybe happened at another race. How about Reading? Go share the Reading video. That one was pretty good. Yeah, go share that. Give them something positive to watch besides this. Follow me on all those social media pages down below. Mighty Mac out there on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Be sure to join the Peak Squad emailing list below. Links in the description for that. And I guess that's it. So from all of us here at Mighty Mac, for Kevin Rollins behind the camera, for Brody Banta, who's over in the Top Limiter Club shooting photos, I'm Mighty Mac himself. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, we'll see you guys at PRI for the PRI Trade Show, and we'll see you in the next video.